We have gone from this storm kind of disappearing, reappearing, disappearing, reappearing, disappearing, changing, switching sides, moving down to the south, and now we're kind of in that period of time where we're going to start to see this storm continue to shift and shift. And what that essentially means is that we're getting more confidence that this storm is going to form. Now, where exactly it plants those snowfall amounts, still a little bit uncertain, but these shifts mean a lot. It also means that we're entering out of fantasy land and into a period where we like to call the mid to long term, where confidence starts to slowly build until we can finally start to talk about some snowfall totals. And then across the country, we are still expecting some dangerously cold wind chills to pull into the northern United States, potentially down to -30. And when you factor in the wind chill, we could even be getting pretty close here to some -50s in northern Minnesota, which would just be honestly crazy for one, but extremely dangerous for two, especially if you get stuck outside for too long. So we'll be breaking all of that down in today's forecast. But before we do, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and post notification button as well if you do end up enjoying this forecast. And if you hate it, feel free to hit that dislike button or comment down below on your suggestions on how my show can get better. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the models, compare and contrast, and figure out what the heck's going to happen with this snowstorm. So, hopping back over and talking about our overall pattern that's going to exist. As you can see, that high pressure system we've been progging to enter into the United States for a couple of days now is finally starting to dip down into the central United States, and that's going to bring a little bit of a warm up while it sticks around down to the southern plains, generally also going into parts of the Ohio Valley until eventually exiting out of the northeast there. And you can see our ridge is really building back over here in the eastern Pacific, just to the south over here of Alaska. And eventually this thing is going to continue to build, grab that cooler air, because again, the air goes around just like this around a high pressure system. And all that Arctic cold that is up into the Arctic is going to start to filter its way down into the United States. And as that does so, we're going to be watching for a favorable jet stream pattern to kind of set up here for a southeast to Ohio Valley snowstorm potential. But again, we're still pretty far out from this thing happening, but it does seem like that cold air is certainly coming. Where the snowstorm will happen will really depend on where that low pressure system sets up and where it tracks. Where is it oriented in comparison to some of our freezing temperatures that are out there? But generally, you can really see that that low pressure system sticks around for a while before it slingshots out of the eastern portion of the country, eventually leaving us all together as another high pressure system tries to build back in over Alaska. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have another cold blast coming in, as we do see that ridge push a little bit further into the United States. Now, one of the best ways to figure out where our low pressure systems could form and potentially bring snow is by looking at the wind shear. This is way above our heads where the jet stream is, and you can see that we are seeing the polar jet up here as we move into the 20th, and that subtropical jet down here. But look, notice how it's a little bit further up to the east, and maybe shifted a little bit more to the north there. So, I mean, we still have some potential here of a low pressure system tracking into the southeast, also going into the Carolinas. But one of the major shifts that we've been seeing, especially in our deterministic models, is we've been seeing a little bit of a shift to the north. There are still some models, though, hanging on to that low pressure system tracking across the southeast, and we'll be going over all of those in today's forecast, kind of giving you a general sense of what is still possible with this storm. But essentially, where this jet stream sets up as we go into the 21st, it's going to be very important on where our storm goes. First off, looking at our Euro model, this is our weakest scenario out of all of them. So we're going to start here and then go into some of our more bullish models for this next snowstorm. But as you can see, generally some more snow is going to be possible up there in the northeastern United States, and then eventually that's going to track out of our hair. We're still getting some chances here for some extra snowfall down into the Ohio Valley as we go into the 18th, spreading up into the northern northeast as well as we go into the 19th, and then eventually we could get a storm on the backside, bring some decent snow totals over there. We actually have a little bit more agreement for this kind of a shortwave snow trough coming into the portions of Virginia there, and then also Maryland, Delaware, potentially also New Jersey and southern New England as well, with some lake effect snow on the backside of all of that. And then eventually, as we go into the 21st, you could see, look at this. The Euro is way suppressed down here to the south. You could see maybe some snowfall there in southern Alabama, maybe even making it into Florida as we move into the 21st. But then eventually, it gets completely suppressed down to the south, maybe causes some snow over there in like the far eastern portions of North Carolina. And then it's out of our hair for the most part, not really bringing much more snow to anybody. Then after that, we see another storm start to form on the 23rd. And then that's a little bit further to the south. And then that kind of moves up into Kentucky, parts of the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. So this is just one solution out of many. But as you can see, the Euro is still kind of consistent here, still kind of our weakest model in terms of these snowfall potentials, especially in the Southeast, as it's kind of indicating down in the Southeast, we're not seeing anything, just rain. Maybe some snow in the very far south of the Southeast, which would be pretty crazy. But the snowstorm after that is kind of looking a little bit on the weaker side. So take this with a grain of salt. Again, these models are going to change quite a bit. But this is the Euro solution. Let's go over and check out the GFS next. This is the latest GFS model, and as you can see, as we push this model forward, it also agrees here on some more snow up here in the Ohio Valley going up into the Northeast. We'll switch this over to this view because it looks a little bit cleaner here. But yeah, you can see as we go into the 18th on 3 a.m. there, you can see that a decent amount of snow could fall there in northern Indiana going into Michigan, potentially even getting up into Detroit. Detroit really hasn't seen too much snowfall this year. You might get a little bit of snow with this kind of frontal boundary that's going to be picking up a low pressure system to the south. You see that frontal boundary extends all the way up into Canada. And eventually, as we go throughout the 18th and the 19th, that's going to spread off to the north and east, still continuing to bring some snow, maybe even some backside snow still possible over here in Kentucky and Tennessee. But we're really not talking about any accumulation, just mainly brief moments there of some heavier snowfall. And then that eventually moves out of our hair. And then our focus shifts up to here with some lake effect snow on the backside. As we go through the 19th, you can see the UP of Michigan going up into parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, also again over here into New York. We're going to see some lake effect snow possibilities, not as strong as some of the other ones we've seen, but Michigan could get a decent little bit of snow on the western side of the state. Eventually, all of that continues to happen, but then our focus starts to shift down here to the southeast as we move into the 22nd. Sorry, the 21st going into the 22nd. You can see that a storm does try to form here near San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas. A little bit of snow on that northern side. And then eventually, this thing goes up a little bit further north than what some of our models were saying. Last models were kind of putting this down into this region where a lot of our snowfall would happen at the beginning. But as we get closer and closer, it does seem like our trend is a little bit warmer each time. So that's most likely going to push our snowfall a little bit further to the north. But again, we're still in that period where we could see this thing shift back down to the south. We're still not in that portion of, we know exactly where the snowfall is going to happen, but the signal is still there for a storm to form sometime between the 20th and the 25th. Okay, so the signal is still there with a northern component, kind of like the last one that we had, bringing more snow all the way up to the north, going into the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes region. But yeah, with this one, you can see that we have snow from Mississippi to Arkansas going up into Oklahoma. Eventually, most of that transitions into rain with some snow over there near Tennessee. On the backside of this thing, maybe some snow just to the east of Little Rock, pushing off to the east. And this will mainly be a snowstorm now over there near Virginia, going up near Ohio and Pennsylvania before eventually scraping the east coast here with some heavier snow in northern Virginia, going up into parts of New Jersey and South New England, potentially bringing a decent amount of snow up there into that region. And then it moves out of our hair, and we're not really talking about it anymore. And that'll be on the 25th. So as you can see, there are big disagreements still on the models, but we're not getting the disagreements in terms of storms disappearing and reappearing. Both of these models, pretty much all of the models, are saying, hey, a low pressure system is going to form somewhere between Houston and Oklahoma City, and where the storm goes is really going to be important on who's going to get some snowfall totals. If it's further down to the south, the snowfall totals will most likely be in this region. If it's further up to the north, snowfall totals could be up in this region. But hold on, there's one more scenario that some of the models are picking up on. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So I'm sure at this point, most people in the southeast are starting to cry. They really wanted snow, but there is still technically hope. And this isn't hope that this exact scenario will happen, but this is hope as in there are still some probability possibilities that the southeast could see some snow. We could see some of the other models shift back towards this solution. This is the Canadian model. And as you can see, as I push this forward, now unfortunately, we don't have precipitation type. So that's showing like the rain and then the snow, like we were just looking at with the GFS and the Euro with this model. So we have to look at snowfall. So don't pay attention to the amounts or the colors, just pay attention to where the snow falls. And as I push this forward all the way into the 20th, the 21st, look at that. Big old strip of some heavy snow down there in the southeast. So, as you can see, we have another model scenario. Let's go ahead and put that onto our map here. Another model scenario where this low pressure system forms over here near Dallas, tracking off like this, bringing a lot of snow over here in the northern southeast. So we have three scenarios, okay? 1, 2, 3. Which one's more likely at this point? Hard to tell. The CMC is right smack dab in the middle. The GFS is a lot further to the north, and the Euro is way down to the south. But the good news is that with all of these shifts, we're not seeing the storm like disappear and reappear. So we're starting to get into the time frame where we're going to start to be able to figure out which one of these low pressure systems are going to be the one that actually ends up happening. So again, this is by no means a forecast that is trying to tell you how much snow you're going to get, where the snow is going to fall, but what we're trying to really communicate here with this forecast is, hey, we are getting more confident that we are going to get a low pressure form down here somewhere in the Texas to Oklahoma region. We're just not quite sure which path it's going to take. Another thing I want to show you guys is the wind chills here. And we sometimes go talk about what the feels like temperatures are going to be, and sometimes we just tell you what the temperatures are going to be. We told you guys yesterday what the temperatures were looking like. Today we'll go focus back onto the wind chills. It's just essentially when it's cold outside, it feels colder to your skin when there's wind. So this is why they call it the feels like temperature, because when you got wind with cold, it feels a lot colder. And as we push this in to the 18th, you can see that high pressure system over there in the northern Pacific is starting to slingshot that cold into Canada. Then we get some low pressure systems come in and bring that cold further down to the south. Not quite as far down and as cold as it can be, but man, we're already talking about the potential there for negative 40-degree temperatures up into the northern United States with those wind chills. Single digits reaching all the way down into Oklahoma. Almost the entire state of Missouri is at 0 or below 0. Same thing with Illinois. This is on the 19th. And then eventually, as we continue to push this into the future here, you can see as that second low pressure system tries to form, it really starts to tug down just a little bit more cooler air. We could be talking about the potential for negative 46-degree temperatures up here in North Dakota, over here in northern Minnesota, single digits all the way down into the southeast, northern Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi. Also potentially negative degree wind chills over there in Arkansas, single digits and teens almost across the entire state of Texas. Folks, this is going to be a cool down to remember. Pretty much for anybody that's underneath this little line, or not underneath, but above this little imaginary line that I'm drawing here with my pointer because I don't have a pen and I'm too lazy to get it. You can see that pretty much everybody is going to be in some sort of dangerous cold. Because again, dangerous cold is not only just an objective measurement, it also has to do with what your body is used to. If your body's not used to having the ability to warm up, even single digit temperatures can be dangerous. And also, for anybody that has houses or pipes that aren't insulated, which is most people in the South, we're definitely talking about the potential here for some busted pipes. So make sure you're dripping those faucets in those bathtubs to make sure your pipes don't burst. And another thing, power outages could happen. When it gets this cold in the South, everybody's blasting their heaters. They're using a lot more electricity. All that use of electricity at once can sometimes overload the power grid and cause it to shut down. So keep all those factors in mind, because if your power goes out and it's this cold, you're definitely going to want to have some sort of blanket backup plan in place. Maybe it's not a bad idea to think about setting up some sort of fire pit outside. But regardless, it's going to be cold. And as I move this into the future, you can see that that cold moves up. Oh my gosh, look at this. A negative 50-degree wind chill up there in northern Minnesota. I'll tell you what, I'm so glad I live in Alabama where we're only going to be getting single digits. It's still freaking cold. And eventually those negative degree temperatures really start to push into the Ohio Valley in the northeast as we move into the 22nd. That eventually moves out of our hair, and we start to generally get a small warm up, but it's still going to be kind of cold behind this system. I mean, we could still see another surge of some cooler temperatures, especially up there in the northern United States, still in the below freezing temperatures down here in the southeast. I mean, it's just going to be a long spread time before we really get any significant warmth. And then look at this, another signal of some cooler, maybe another polar vortex making it down as we go into the 29th. Really just not looking forward to this. It's just been one of the coldest winters that I've had in a while down here in the southeast, and maybe for some of you guys in different areas of the country are experiencing the same. But all right, everybody, that's going to be it for me. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for checking out this forecast. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And if you haven't, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button yet again, because again, it does help us reach more people in the path of the storm. That's not something that I just make up and say so you hit the like button. I honestly don't care about the like button at all. It's the YouTube algorithm that does. It's just something that you got to kind of say. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you guys on the next forecast.